Right, welcome to another episode of UK Karate Podcast. I'm Chris Walsh.
I'm Andy Patton.
And today we've got Sensei David Hurst in the house with us. How are we doing, Sensei?
Good, thanks to you.
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So you were up visiting family anyway, up this end, was you?
Yeah, we came down last night. We had a surprise party to go to.
Oh, very nice.
Came up last night. A nice 3.5 hour trip trying to get here, bank holiday traffic and all that.
Yeah, was it actually bad, the traffic?
Yeah, but we left at the wrong time. We left at 5 o'clock. So.
Oh dear.
M25 was chocker. So.
But right, let's dial it back then, Sensei David. When did you start your karate journey?
So back in 1991, I'd got a friend that he was already a Shodan, a school friend. We went to school together, and I think he trained when he was a child. And then we got another mutual friend, and Darren, the original friend who was the Shodan, had been talking to my other friend and trying to cajole him along to go. So my friend was, and I wasn't interested. He asked me 2 or 3 times, and I said, no, it's not my sort of thing, it's rubbish, and this, that, and the other. Anyway, eventually, since I'd left school, I'd not been really doing any sport. I'd done a bit of running and stuff. By this stage, I was 21, and I was sort of hanging around a bit.
Was sports like a thing for you though, like as a...
Yeah, I was quite sporty, but I was always quite small at school. I was sort of a late developer, so sort of once I'd left school, I enjoyed sport, didn't really excel in it to any degree. I could run a bit, I was quite athletic, I was quite agile.
Was there anyone that was like a particular passion or anything like that, or was it just you just like doing
sport?
No,
I mean, I will be honest, I don't want to sort of... I did like to fight a little bit. And you know, I sort of, you know, between me leaving school, you know, I was having, I wouldn't say I was up to no good, but I wasn't really doing a lot. I was getting in 1 or 2 fights, you know, it wasn't great. And then eventually, you know, Ian sort of, the friend, eventually I said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And I went along to Newark.
Yeah, so it would have been at the old...
the leisure centre.
The old Grove Leisure Centre,
yeah. So it's at the Grove Leisure Centre, and went down. It's funny, I tried to dig the photo out for you, and I can't find it anywhere, but I've got a photo from one of my first sessions, and we was doing some sparring. I've got some black shell suit, bottoms on, and a cream t-shirt. But yeah, I went along and absolutely loved it.
Yeah. So who was the instructor at that time?
So it was Sensei Darren Taggart and Wayne Malachevsky. I think they'd just taken over the club, or they sort of inherited it from Sensei Alan Bainbridge, and I think he'd emigrated. Now, I'm not the exact date, but I think he'd emigrated. So I went in January, mid-January 1991. I think Sensei Alan had emigrated probably the year before, in October, November time.
Yeah.
So Darren and Wayne took the club over, and obviously when I went, they was the instructors there. So.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how it all started.
So yeah, so in the 90s then, when you would have started, I bet were the numbers like pretty big like back then in the club, because from what I remember, even as a young kid, like it was a big club back then.
There was a lot of people there. So we trained on a Tuesday evening. They had the kids class first, and then the adults class after. Same on a Thursday and on a Sunday as well. And the numbers, I mean, we trained in the gym, the old gym, if you can remember that, and that was just packed.
That was like the old floor with the old wooden climbing frame things on the wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot there, and a good mix as well, from a good age range, from people in the 70s right down, you know, to kids sort of 6, 7, 8 years old or whatever it would have been.
Yeah. So obviously that first night, was it particularly particularly difficult, or like just what was it like sort of for you, like being in the line that first night?
For me, it's like you don't really quite know what's going off. You sort of jump in the line, and I did find it quite intriguing and almost, obviously, it reminded me of, if you remember Enter the Dragon, one of the opening scenes of Enter the Dragon, and you've got those people doing punches all in unison, and it sort of had that mystique for me where everybody was in uniform lines, everyone was in grade order. Obviously they were shouting instructions out in Japanese, which made no sense to me at all. I couldn't understand it, but everybody knew what to do. And it grabbed me because everybody was like doing the punches in unison. Obviously now I know it's a ki, but everyone was doing this mad shouting, and I thought, this is great. It just hooked me straight away, which was ironic.
Nothing can prepare you for you. Like, I think anyone, like when anyone starts and like a beginner hears the ki and that for the first time, like, what's that all about?
It's nothing like, see, when you've done other sports, there is nothing like it that I can compare it to. It is unique, and it just grabbed me straight away.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because I thought it was going to be, not for me, and I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
But I was hooked straight away.
So obviously, you've had that. You've had your first lesson. Then who sort of taught you? Can you remember who taught you that night? Or actually, I can remember Darren and Wayne. They used to mix it a bit, didn't they? Like one to each one. Or...
Yes. So they the usual format, which obviously during the warm up, I remember that immediately. During the warm-up, we did a bit of a warm-up, we did some stretching and so on, but then we'd go straight into, and it was light sparring, it was part of the warm-up. So we sort of went through that, which hooked me as well, because I like moving about and I like trying to punch people, and so that grabbed me again. And then what used to happen, then we all used to line up, and then Darren would probably run us through some basics, and then if it was a particularly big class, which inherently it was, we used to split the class down the middle. Darren would probably take the high grades, and then Wayne would take the lower grades, and so on.
Yeah, I'm sure I remember that being there. I don't know if they must have done it when you were there as well. Was that? I mean, you'd never see it now, but you'd have everybody laid down on the floor.
Yeah.
And then like someone would have to get up one end and run across everybody's stomachs.
Yeah.
Like I remember doing that as a kid, thinking this is mental. But because I was like, it would be like you'd be laid there at the end, but it was like if you'd just run down, and then there'd be like a full blown adult running down. You're like, holding your core as strong as possible. Like.
There was a lot of. I mean, like training was like that. That's just how it was. It was quite. I mean, when you're a lower grade, you sort of. You are looked after, you are nurtured, you're not sort of thrown into the deep end. But then as you go up the grades, I do remember it being, we used to, and I can't remember the guy's name, but, when I got up through the grades, we used to do like body conditioning, and there was a guy that used to run a club in Nottingham, and I forget his name, but he used to come across and bring some of his, it was quite a thing back in the day for clubs to train at other clubs. It was a big thing, and he used to come. He was a high grade, and we used to do body conditioning, and we'd be there. I constantly had bruises on my arms because we were sort of doing exercises where you'd be clashing forearms, shins. There was a lot of that which you look back on and just wouldn't be allowed now. You just wouldn't do it because there'd be too many people going to court.
Well, it's like it's like the press ups on the knuckle, isn't it? Like now, I mean, obviously, generally that's just reserved for the adults, rather than letting the kids, doing it. I mean, sometimes you do still find it, but I think the science is there that it does affect the kids, the growth and everything like that. They're doing the press ups on the knuckles, but I mean, back then everybody did them on the knuckles.
And things like I can remember, during the warm up where you're going down into the splits, someone would come up behind you and push you down. Which if you think about it now, I mean, I was quite lucky that I was quite bendy and quite sort of.
I was going to say, that would be my memory. You had legs like elastic.
I was quite flexible, so it's sort of like, years ago I could go down into the splits and box splits and stuff, so it didn't bother me, but that was a thing. Instructors used to come up behind you, you're trying to get down and they'd say, get down lower, and they'd sort of literally sit on your back.
Well, I mean, that's twice I've had my hamstrings tweaked and pulled. With stuff like that, like you'd be straight like the one I still don't mind the exercise when someone if you stood up against the wall and someone's pushing your leg up like either in a forward straight up, or you turn to the side and you're making sort of like a Kikomi and you're pushing up like that. But I've had a couple of times where people just haven't known what they're doing. It's like, look, steady, mate, and then they've just gone yoink. You're just like,
then, that's got to be a strict collaboration.
Exactly. You've got to respect your partner, haven't you?
But yeah, I mean I guess, when I first started, I don't think it was as brutal as it was in the 70s and 80s, but I caught the tail end of it, if you like.
Yeah, I think the 90s was still...
it was still there, but it wasn't... you've got to remember that the guys that went through in the 70s and 80s, so they were then teaching me, so I was sort of getting a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
And it was, compared with today, we'll probably go into that later, what I've noticed as the years have gone by, but it was quite harsh at times.
Yeah. But so when you obviously you'd been there training, you enjoyed it. Obviously they would have started getting you, ready to grade, I imagine. Yeah. So
I'd obviously gone there in the mid-January, and there was a grading coming up literally about 4 weeks later. Now, obviously, I'd only been there 4 weeks, but at the time I had started, there were a group of about 7 or 8 that were all white belts, and they were all adults, so they were all about my age or within a few years. And I think, because ordinarily you wouldn't, you'd wait 3 months before you're going to do your first grading, that's sort of a given. And I think they looked at it and thought, they didn't have me grading because they thought I was really brilliant and fantastic.
Well, no, but you probably just picked it up a lot.
But maybe there's a bit of that. But I also think, looking back, there's a bit that, he'd be better. Because when you're going up through the grades, it's fantastic if you're with a group.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I think they knew that I'd be better with that group because you feed off each other, don't you? So, so about a month later.
Well, you're pushing each other, I think, as a group.
And I think and I think it was more that than rather, because I can remember they always did a sort of a mock grading, a pre-grading before the grading, and they thought, we'll have a look at him. If he's okay, we'll put him in, and that's basically what happened.
Yeah, and then who was the first grading exam?
Sensei Bob Rhodes.
I bet that was a delight, wasn't it? Nice, he liked to put a bit of pressure on everyone. Didn't he?
He does. Yeah, he's quite scary, particularly when you first see him.
I don't think that's changed.
No. No. Well, he's he's a nice guy when you sort of speak to him, but when you first meet him, you think, he's...
Yeah, I think once
you won't want to fall out with him.
No. No.
I think that it's that thing of even, I think it's, like you said, outside of the dojo and everything, like lovely bloke, you get him in the dojo and it's a bit, you best be putting out the business in the dojo, otherwise.
Yeah, it's very strict,
But I take it passed flying colours first time?
Yeah, passed, went through, that was all good. Sort of, I can't really remember that much about the grading, if I'm honest.
Was Sensei Bob, did he grade you like through most of your Q grades?
Yeah, all the way through. I did every one of my Q grades with Sensei Bob, all of them, all the way through.
And who, where and who graded you, for your Shodan?
So,
and what year did, if you can remember, obviously, what sort of year was that when you?
It was. I have made a note of it.
I've got it.
94. 94. So, it was at the Grove.
Oh, it was actually.
We did get hold 1 or 2 down gradings there, but they were big gradings. They were a lot grading. They'd run on for hours, and it was. That obviously to train me up for it. I was ready. I used to train 3 times a week at the very minimum.
Yeah. Was that just a conscious decision? Was that starting out in the Q grade thinking, right, I just want to train as much as possible, or was that you'd get through the grades and then you've got the Shodan in sight, and then you think, right, I need to double down the efforts here?
Sort of, but I was, obviously, we might come on to it a bit later, but I was competing early on, so I'd got that mindset that if I wasn't training, I was never going to be any good at competing or anything.
Yeah.
So I used to get that, if I used to miss a session, it'd play on my mind.
Yeah.
And also what I also used to do, I also used to go and train at Grantham from time to time.
Did you like drive yourself over there, or did you like come with Phil, or like did?
No, I used to go on my own, because sometimes I can remember a few times when they had like a grading over there. I actually used to go over and train and then come back to Newark and train, because the times are staggered, so I could do that. But they also used to come across to us and train. It was quite there was a rivalry there, but it was a friendly rivalry. Yeah, it wasn't like So yeah, I used to train a lot, so I got myself ready for the grading, and it was with Sherry and Sensei Brennan.
Yeah.
And I still to this day don't know what went wrong. All I know is I failed the basics.
Yeah.
Didn't even get up for the kata. Sensei Darren and Wayne, they were quite kind about it. Sort of told me not to worry and said, "Oh, you must have been nervous and that." And I just think, looking back, I mean, it was the best thing that could have happened to me, without a shadow of a doubt, because I think because I'd had, moderate success competition-wise up to that point, I almost subconsciously thought I was probably going to turn up on the day
and breeze it.
If I'm being honest, I think that I may have not thought that at the time, but looking back now, I'm older and wiser. I think I was just going to turn up, go through the motions. Yeah, I'm going to get it, and I didn't. And it was probably the best thing that happened to me, I think.
Yeah. So I'm just going to bring it back a little bit, because you said obviously you'd done a bit of competing like by that point, going for Shodan. So what sort of grade were you like when you thought, was it? Did you want to like jump into the competition, or did Sensei Darren and Wayne, did they sort of like steer you in that direction?
It was almost a natural progression, being that I was surrounded by people, because Newark had got a rich history in competing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of medal winners in that club at the time. And I touched on earlier, when we did the warm-ups, we always did sparring. There was a lot of Kumite going off. So I was doing that in training anyway. It wasn't as if we weren't doing it. And obviously I had a lot of inspiration around, like the guys used to come from Grantham.
Is there anyone that you can remember in particular that would be coming over?
Obviously Sensei Phil Rakes, Ian Hemstock, your dad, Nigel Ross. They used to come over regularly. When I was a low grade, when we'd do any sparring, I used to run and try and get a black belt. Even though it was really out of my comfort zone, I knew that I had to go with them, and they sort of nurtured me a bit.
That's where you learn, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was used to it. So there was a competition come up. I think it was a Lincoln Open, and there's a few people going. So I thought, I'll have a go. I'll have a crack at it. And I was a red belt at the time. I don't know how long.
Getting stuck in at a red belt, good lad.
It was an open competition. I remember it, and there was a few different styles of karate, but there was also a lot of I think there was Lao Gar Kung Fu guys there, which I had to fight as well. So that was.
I bet that must have been interesting. Because again, totally different style.
Yeah, I mean, but
totally a different approach to Kumite, I imagine.
It was, but I didn't notice it so much because I was only a red belt.
Yeah.
I've got a photo of me actually fighting one of them, and you can see I've just gone in with a looping punch. It wasn't a straight punch. I'd obviously gone in with like I was bowling a cricket ball. So as much as they was unpredictable at that stage, I obviously was as well. But yeah, it was interesting. There was quite a lot of.
So it was like basically full on sparring, well not sparring, full on Kumite, sorry, at this competition. Not like some of the places now, like if you're a lower grade, you wouldn't even be doing full.
No, straight in.
Doing full sparring, it'd be like step sparring or something like that.
It was full free fighting.
Straight in the deep end then.
And I managed to get through to the final.
Oh, good lad.
Which was sort of all right, and I was actually winning in the fight. It's funny because I've done a lot of fights, but I can distinctly remember this because it was my first one.
Yeah.
And I was winning in the final, but I kept trying to hit him, and then he eventually picked me off. But I can remember waking up the next day because again, fighting back then was a lot more it was like a real fight.
Yeah, it was. I think it was intense.
It's as close as you could get to it. It's much different now, but you know, like yes, there had to be control to the face because of cuts and so on, but to the body, no one was pulling anything.
No.
You know, and I can remember waking up the next day and I'd done my ribs. I felt, you know, I couldn't move, I couldn't laugh. But yeah, and I was hooked. I loved it.
Yeah. So obviously, like you say, you supplemented obviously some of that training with going over to Grantham, and I think as much like you said, there was some good lads like at Newark and Grantham, but like I think we touched on with my old man and Sensei Phil. Over at Grantham, I always seemed like it seemed a little bit different over there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm glad I did it because it. You know, they were all different characters as well. You know,
and they all had different style. But everyone had such a different style. Yeah. Even at Newark, like not just Grantham, but even at Newark, everyone had like.
Yeah, I mean, like Phil. I mean, you know, a lot of these guys they won't know, but they shape you, and they don't realise they're doing it, but they're an inspiration. I mean, I used to look at Phil, and he used to just, one minute he wasn't there, and then he was there. He used to glide across the floor. He just used to look good, annoyingly good sometimes. And then you'd get like characters like, Ian Hemstock. He frightened the pants off me.
Oh God!
Honestly.
It's hard to believe now, like when you meet up with Ian now, but
he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
But you know, when you sort of, I never fought him in competition, but I used to spar with him a lot in training, and he just used to frighten me. You know, he was big. He just looked terrifying.
Yeah, he did. I remember like when they used to do lineups at Grantham, and it wouldn't be separate lineups for certain grades. It would be one person and then 30, 40 people, or whatever it would be in the line. Yeah. And like you'd be getting around, and you'd just someone would go, and then you're looking at one and think, oh God, Ian's about 10 away, and then everyone would be like. As soon as you go in front,
and you're against the wall. And sometimes we used to do it so you was in the corner.
Yeah.
So you got nowhere to go. You couldn't go backwards.
You had to just dig in.
You either had to try and drive your way forward.
Yeah.
And and you've got like, if you've got a lineup, you've got Phil, and then you've got Ian, and then you've got Rossi, and then you've got Amos, and then you've got your dad, the butcher. You got no respite. But it made you learn. You was getting hit, but then eventually.
Yeah,
you learn not to get hit,
and
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
It was a sort of a war of attrition.
It's just like even though it probably didn't seem like it, it was just a controlled pressure in it, in a sense.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, they were, particularly when I was in the lower grades, they were quite nurturing. I felt under pressure, and I knew I had to be on my game, even though I was a low grade.
Yeah.
But they was just pushing me just enough. I knew full well, looking back now, they could have put me in the back of an ambulance at any given moment if they wanted. But they just put enough pressure on to let me know that they was there, and this is how you've got to improve.
I think probably someone who didn't know karate or not done it would be like, oh, bloody hell, this is a bit like sadistic here. But it's that pressure, I'm pretty sure that Andy, Sean, yourself probably would agree, is that you need to have, especially on the young ones, you need to put that pressure on now, because I just seen recently that people don't know how to deal with that. If they've never been under that pressure, they come up against someone that will put that pressure on them. They don't know how to deal with it.
No.
So then it's a massive benefit to you.
I think being put under like that, it's very unnerving at first, but you've got to look at, it's a martial art at the end of the day. We are trying to learn to, I know there's many facets to it, and it's not always about fighting, there's other sort of facets that it's got to it. But at the end of the day, you've got to be put under that pressure at some point, because God forbid if anyone attacks you out in the street, you don't want to be just stood. Yes, it's still going to be uncomfortable, that doesn't leave you, but you've got to be able to try and deal with the situation that's in front of you. And the only way you can deal with that is to have had that feeling before, I think.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to, most fights real fights are over within seconds. They're not lasting very long. You've got to be able to either defend yourself enough to get out of there, but you've got to have experienced that before.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of like a make or break situation.
It's almost, I always look back on it now, they was being cruel to be kind.
Yes. Yeah. And I usually really don't like that saying "cruel to be kind," but you are, yeah.
But they was doing it.
No, you are right, because it was they were trying to see how you would cope with that pressure, and that pressure would have gone on for however long. And then I've seen it myself when you've pulled the people, and we've put people under pressure, and it's eventually they suddenly just go, do you know what? I'm not being put under pressure anymore, and that's almost like the happiest day ever when you see them give it back, and then you're like, oh, I'm under pressure now. The tables turn, or they're even.
Yeah, they've got it. Yeah. And I think that it is sort of, you don't see it at the time, but for those guys, it's done in a controlled environment. They are controlled.
Yes.
You don't feel that.
No.
You just think
No,
that
you think they're going to
in a whole heap of pain. Yeah. You think they're going to eat you alive, but they are actually controlling it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there's a lot of those guys. There was a big. They may not know it, but there was a big influence on them.
Yeah. And do you feel like through those years, your Kumite and everything like flourished because of that? It came
100%. Yeah. Without that, if I had gone to another club that didn't do a lot of Kumite, I wouldn't be what I sort of became, and my love for Kumite really.
Yeah. So you were saying, obviously you went for your Shodan in 1994, and obviously unfortunately failed. But like you said, it was the best thing that happened to you. How long did you leave it before you?
I was told that I'd got to wait 3 months.
Right.
So they said, because obviously I'd failed the basics, which was like.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
like that. If you fail it, like you say, you can't. There's no point.
You've got the whole lot to do.
Yeah.
So and I was sort of dejected, but it had an effect on me. I thought, right, okay, back we go, start again, let's start working. And I think it was about 4 months later, went to Rhyl in Wales. This time it was Sensei Enoeda, and I managed to pass. I can't really remember much about the grading apart from I graded with one of the guys that had started with me originally, and we'd gone through all the grades together. We was the only two that were left.
Can you remember his name?
Robert Reed. So we trained, we sparred together, we did a lot together. So we were sort of fairly close, at that point. And the only thing I can remember is I passed and he failed. And I was I was obviously pleased that I passed, but I was so disappointed for him.
Yeah.
And that's the only real thing I can remember. The grading just went with the blue. I can remember it being a lot of people there as there normally was.
Yeah.
But I can't remember much about the actual grading.
So. I know it's a shame that where it takes that shine off a bit, just because again your mates failed, your mates failed, and you've passed. But I mean. There must have been that, the relief.
The relief.
I don't think there's anything quite like it. You pass your Shodan, that feeling I think you get is.
Yeah, because you put a lot of work into that in the previous years. Going back, whatever it was, 4 years or whatever it was, you put a lot of effort in, and it's like almost it is relief. And then you sort of wake up, and that particular grading, I think the next day we had a club grading, and I came, and it was traditional that the instructor would present you with your black belt, and Sensei Bob Rhodes was obviously doing the club grading, so they got Sensei Bob to present me with my black belt.
That must have been nice. That presented off Sensei Bob as well.
It was nice, and then the funny thing about it was we did the training pre the grading, and Bob took it, and we had odd numbers, so I got to pair up with Sensei Bob for the entire session.
Oh, lovely.
And those that you have trained with Sensei Bob, he likes quite long combinations, and he likes his bunkai. And I can just remember training with him, thinking, this guy's made of iron. He was really strong. And not only that, it showed me that day, because I came back, I'd passed my down grading, I thought, I'm a first, I'm really... I thought I was the bee's knees.
Yeah, of course. I think when anyone passes, I think everyone does, and then I think then you soon realise I still know.
I hit the ground with a bump that day because Sensei Bob was doing, we was doing some paired work, and it was a sort of a longish combination, if I remember. I was all over the place. He's like, I was thinking, I'm nowhere near.
Taking it off.
Yeah, sorry, Sensei.
I
I just remember it, and it was sort of, after that session, I just thought, you don't really know a lot at all. You've still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
so,
The amount of times I've seen like people pass the Shodan, and then they come back in the dojo and they're like giving it they're almost giving it the Conor McGregor, aren't they? Like giving the old swagger, and then it's not long before like.
I think that was like at the times as well. Like looking back, at Newark, no one got. If you did well at a competition, no one went on about it. If you'd done well that day, everyone forgot about it.
That was it. Yeah.
And if anyone got too big for the boots, lineups.
Yeah.
You soon got brought back down.
Well, it was the great leveler, wasn't it? The lineup. So I mean, I imagine like when you were like competing then, like the centre. I mean, like my memory again, the central. There were central regions from like back then. Even in the 90s, it was still pretty big, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, the numbers were massive.
Yeah,
it was like. Yeah, I mean, you'd go and, back then obviously we didn't have phones and stuff, so you'd go and look for the sheets, on your name on the sheets of the drawers, and there was just like...
Just a sea of sheets.
And you was like, trying to find your name on the sheet. There was a lot there. Even like, the Nationals was even bigger. I think, to get to the Nationals were like this. They had seeded fighters, so they had like the top 8 fighters. Now, to even get to the seeded section, you'd probably have to have 6 or 7, 8 fights.
Yeah,
do the maths on that.
And probably even the rest.
And you'd had the team before that. So you'd got any competition you went in, to get deep into it or place, you'd had a lot of fights to get there.
Yeah.
It was hard.
So, if you think like any like memorable ones from like the centrals. I think we were talking like the other day, weren't we? And I asked you.
I was quite fortunate in many respects that I wasn't bad. I had moderate success, and I tended to get to fight some really good, both at the centrals and the nationals, some really good fighters. I went far enough to get, all right, they beat me in the end, but at the time, in the UK we had some genuine world-class fighters.
Oh yeah.
And we was in the team event in the centrals, and we had a pretty good team, Newark, so we always used to go quite a way, and we'd had a few rounds, and we got Coxmore's Wood. Now, I always used to fight, I was a brown belt at the time as well, so I was still relatively inexperienced at this particular moment in time. And so the next round, we knew we got Coxmore's Wood. Well, Coxmore's Wood is Sensei Ronnie Christopher's club. I knew Ronnie fought at number 1. I always fought at number 3. And I was thinking to myself, and it's that same mentality that, when I used to train when I was a lower grade, I used to run down to the black belts. Now, I asked Sensei Darren always fought at number 1, I was always at number 3 or thereabouts at that particular moment in time. So I went up to Darren and said, do you mind if I fight number 1?
He was like, yeah, sure, go for it, mate.
And I think he looked at me like I was some sort of madman, I think, at the time. And he just says, yeah, sure. But actually, when you think about it, it actually made tactical sense, because the least likely, because all of the Coxmore's Wood team were very strong. They were a good team. Yeah. They got Ronnie Christopher at number 1. They'd got people like Mark, I forgot his last name, Bernard Darcy, Ronnie Canning. Used to fight last. They were a quality team. So it was almost like
was this when it was still like five?
Yeah, it was a 5-man team at that time. Yeah, it was a 5-man team. So Darren agreed to it, and I've got to clarify this, I think, as well. I didn't want to fight Ronnie because I thought I'd got no illusions that I fancied my chances against him. I didn't. It was actually the complete opposite. I'd watched it, I'd seen him fight many times. I'd been at the side of the mat, watched him fight, and I wanted to see what it'd be like to be in the eye of the storm. And I wanted to see how I coped with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to put myself, and those that can remember me competing, I was a very nervous competitor. I was very, very nervous. I used to feel sick and all sorts. I used to struggle with my gum shield early on. Because it wasn't the fact of fear of getting hurt so much, it was the fear of letting everyone down and can I perform under pressure.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll have a go.
So
it was quite...
So what was that like then?
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
In the eye of the storm.
It was, terrifying. But I can remember I had this thought in my head. I thought, I'm only a brown belt. He's probably going to take it a little bit easy on me. Anyway, I lined up and he was looking at me and I thought, he's not going to take it easy. I could just tell by the look on his face. And interestingly enough, I've been going through some old videos this week and he did an interview on Sky Sports after one of the Nationals. And he actually made a point of saying it doesn't matter who you're fighting, whether a brown belt. He said, I treat everyone else the same. And I laughed when I heard it. I thought, I remember. But my sort of outlook on it was, I'm going to have a go. I've got nothing to lose. I'll have a go and see what happens. And I did. I had a go at him. I lost, but I competed. And I didn't sort of. I think in the end, I can remember being on my back. I think he swept me, but in the end I lost. But I had to go. I didn't shy away because I was always quite. I wasn't a big fighter. I was quite small, but I was very aggressive. I tried to be very aggressive because that was one of my tools.
Well, I think like a lot of from my memory of back then, it was a lot of the shorter fighters. It was the real aggressive ones.
I think we had to be because when I was fighting, my weight. I'm 5'8". My weight was around 10.5, 11 stone. I was very agile. I was very quick, but I had to be aggressive.
Yeah.
I could not be because I was fighting bigger guys. There was no weight categories.
No.
It was one of the tools that I had to try and use and try and develop, which eventually I did. So I tried to be very aggressive with him. The interesting thing about that though was later on obviously that was in the team. I think we lost. I can't remember what the result was, but the team lost and we went out. We went to the individuals. Obviously the Central Regions that day. I went to the quarterfinals because I thought it taught me a lot that day about the mental side of it. A lot of it is up here.
Yeah. And keeping switched on, even if you've been defeated, let's say like they're the team, keeping mentally switched on.
And I went into the rest of the day. Thought, well, it can't get any worse than that. That's as bad as it's going to get for you. And I think at the time, Ronnie had just been. I think he was, or a couple of years before maybe, it was like world number 2. I think and he only didn't win because he got injured in the semi-final. So he was...
Yeah. I mean, I remember, as a kid, I mean, you'll probably remember like me going everywhere with like Grantham and that, and that as a kid. But I remember just sitting, watching Ronnie. I mean, it was...
Oh, it was awesome.
It was awesome.
You'd sort of, I watched videos and wanted to be like him. I never ever got there. But again, at the time, my mentality was I might never get this opportunity again. So, but what it did for me that day, and particularly after that as well, I thought, well, it's all in the mind. It can't get any worse. What's the worst that can happen? And I got through that day. I fought my way through, and I got through to the quarterfinals, and I came up against Julian Cunningham from...
Oh, he was a talent as well. Julian. Like, he could hit you from anywhere.
Oh, he got long range. You thought you was safe, and then he was all over you like a rash. And I took him to 2 extensions. And in the end, they had to make a decision. But I can remember thinking, I may as well just give it a go again. And didn't really care about the result and just sort of lived in the moment. And I did sort of all right. But that was the upshot of fighting Ronnie, and the mentality. My mentality then changed from there on in.
Yeah. Well, you've put yourself there with like one of the best that Britain's had.
It's not going to get worse.
No.
And I think actually a couple of weeks, about 4 or 5 weeks later, Julian that year went on and won the Nationals.
I saw him. I remember seeing him as a young lad, and then I saw him a bit later when I think just before he probably packed up competing, and he could still. I mean, he could still do it. Bloody hell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's very good. Very good.
Did you? So obviously you would have remember competing then. Did you ever fight like Matt Price or?
Yeah, I fought Matt Price. It was an open somewhere. He was still quite young. Well, we were both quite young, really. But again, I mean, he was awesome again. He was very aggressive. I mean, that was one of those times where I went out to him being very aggressive, and I quickly thought, that's probably not the best tactic, because he sort of, I'd got nothing against him, you know. I ended up on my back and he swept me, and before I know it, he was punching me in the face and the fight was over. But again, you know, awesome to see, because you get a different perspective when you're in there.
Oh yeah.
When you're watching from the outside, it's slightly different. You can, when you're in there, you know, the speed, the way that they move, they're very clever. They're setting you traps all the time, and I learned, you know, these fighters aren't just, some of it's instinct, but they're also setting you up for stuff.
Yeah.
And I got, but that was, but a good experience again. You only learn from these fighting better fighters. It just makes you better.
Oh, absolutely. So obviously competing in a lot, and you got asked to go to the Central Region squad, was it?
Yeah. So I think I'd been I think it was at the Central Regions I'd been competing, and I'd just come off the mat, and Sensei Frank Brennan was a couple of mats away. And I looked over in his direction, for whatever reason. I was probably looking at whoever was fighting on the mat, and he looked at me and he went.
Waved you over, yeah.
I thought, oh God, what have I done? I've done some faux pas, I've done something wrong. I'm in trouble here. And he called me over and he said, I've been watching you all day. He said, I think you've been very, very dynamic today. Would you like to come and try out for my Central Region Kumite squad? So.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Well, I was just relieved I wasn't in trouble, to be fair. And obviously, so that was it. So I did. I went along and
what was that like there? Was that?
It was. So again, the squad was quite large, and there was some of the guys that were there were already in the national squad as well. It was a sort of and again, it was a bit of a. When I first got there, I looked around and I saw the calibre of people in the room, and I thought, I've got imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? Yeah. You know, what am I bringing to the party here? Because I just looked around and I just saw quality all around. And the training was really hard. Sapping, just drills, and then at the end of the training, you had to fight 3 or 4 people. Yeah. For the selection side of things. The first one I got was, I can't remember the others, but I can remember fighting Bernard Darcy. He was a very good fighter. Yeah. But the funny thing about it, and you know what I will say here, that Bernard suited my style. He was better than me, but I could look quite good against him. Right. And it went quite well. Yeah, I got selected, and that was it.
Oh, brilliant. How long did you do that for?
Probably about 3 years, I think.
Yeah. Was it one of those that going to one of them sessions? You know, like speaking to a few people that like went to those sessions. You know, like you'd be like getting up that morning, going there. Oh God.
Oh yeah, when the car journey's there, you were probably deathly silent. You were just trying to because you knew the training was going to be hard. Yeah. On itself, you know, because you couldn't. Those squad sessions were particularly hard because you couldn't switch off at any point, and they were long sessions. Yeah, it's not like training in the dojo where you might get, I don't know, you might get a bit of kumite and you might get, a couple of hard fights, and then you might get a lower grade where you can have a bit of a rest. There was no rest there at all. No, and I was a brown belt still at this point, so bear that in mind. I was the only brown belt in the squad. Everyone else was Shodan or above, you know, and some of them were.
But that only goes to show that, you know, Sensei Brennan must have, you know.
Yeah, obviously, but in your own mind, you don't see that. You just see, you know, you got a bit of imposter syndrome initially. Yeah. They were hard sessions. You know, there were a lot of lads from Coxmore's Wood, Benson. There were some good people there. It was hard. They were hard sessions, but again, you grew from it. It made you. It could do nothing but make you better. but it was like a war of attrition in the fact that we did lose a lot. So the squad would start really large at the beginning of the year, and then you'd lose people as you went along through getting injured or whatever it'd be.
Yeah.
But
what a great environment to learn, especially now. You look at karate, a lot of the associations, so many associations now, it's all splintered down, but what an environment to learn.
A lot of it did nothing. You couldn't help but get better.
Yeah.
You had to.
Yeah.
Because you were in a whole heap of trouble if you didn't. And because they were, and like I touched on earlier, when you were doing Kumite back then, they were as close to real fights as you could get. With,
that video you sent me this week of Sensei Ronnie and Barry Watkins.
Yeah.
I mean, what an exchange that was between them, and
I mean, I can often remember thinking, like when we was doing the Kumite, Sensei Frank Brenner used to do a lot of the refereeing and stuff as well, and I was thankful that there was a ref there.
Help!
But I sort of got on okay, and I did quite well. I'd sort of I'd sort of gained a lot out of it, gained an awful lot out of it, and it was a great experience. And a lot of those guys in that squad at that time would have quite easily got in a lot of national squads today, without a shadow of a doubt.
So, moving on from the competing a bit. So you've been doing the squad, the squad training and everything, and then obviously still club training. You probably had it in your mind thinking, I wouldn't mind going for my Nidan. Like obviously, once you pass your Shodan down the road. As in 97 that you in 1997 that you went and graded for your Nidan.
Yeah, so obviously became eligible, and I'd been training. I'd not stopped training 3, 4, 5 times a week by that point. I was like proper into it. So yeah, and luckily enough, the grading came back to it was back at Newark again. Sensei Enoeda was doing the grading again, another big grading. It was quite a nice grading because I can remember actually bits of it, what happened. And the basics went okay, come to do the Kumite. And back then what they tended to do was, they were pretty sensible about it. They tried to pair you in a Kumite with someone roughly your own size, physical stature. Yeah. That's what they tried to do. So I got the first guy, and obviously when you're doing Kumite for your grading, it's more continuous. It's not point stop.
No, you're trying to show that you can attack and defend, aren't you? Yeah.
And what was happening was I was doing really well, and I kept hitting this guy repeatedly, and he wasn't really doing anything. So I actually stopped, and Sensei Enoeda just pointed at me and shouted at me,
Carry on.
And obviously at the time I didn't realise at that point they was looking at the other guy.
Yeah, looking at him to see if he could do it.
And I was feeling sorry for him because I'm just making a mess of him here. So that went particularly well. Got all that done. I thought, great, that's gone well. And then as the grading went on, they got to the bigger lads started coming through, and there was 2 massive guys, and they were good. They were sharp. They were probably about your height, 6'3", big to me anyway.
Lanky.
But they were big. And one of them got injured. He didn't get injured as in he got, he pulled his hamstring or whatever, so he couldn't go on. So he was left with this other big guy. And I saw, so the room went quiet, no one knew what to do, they'd not got a partner for him. So I saw Sensei Enoeda scanning the room like that. And all of a sudden he locked eyes on me and he was shouting something in Japanese, and it was evident he wanted me to come up and fight with this guy. As it turns out, he thought I'd done quite well and thought I could probably, because at that point they obviously realised now they weren't grading me at that point. They just needed an hookie for this guy. He thought that somebody can, and I can remember standing up and Ian Hemstock was stood behind me. And he just leaned in over my shoulder, and I sort of looked round at him like that, and he had this grin on his face, like a wry smile. He said, I'm not going to tell you the exact words he said, but he said the words of, "This is really going to sting." So anyway, I went up, and I was obviously a lot faster than the other guy, but as I said, it's continuous. So I was beating him to the punch, and by all accounts, I felt the punches coming back in the kicks. By all accounts, you could hear them thudding in, and I was thinking, and I came back, did it. You know, it was quite a rough fight, but I did all right. It's fine. He passed the thing. Came back, and Ian was just stood there grinning at me. And the next day I couldn't move.
He was right.
So that was quite nice because I look back on it now, and it's a big deal to me that he actually noticed me for a few minutes. He recognised something in me. Yeah.
Just while we're talking about Sensei Enoeda, what was your memory, of Sensei Enoeda, really,
I mean, it's just his presence.
Yeah.
You could be, you know what it was like, when you went to any courses that he was there, you'd all be warming up in the dojo before, and he wouldn't be there. And you could have your back to the door, but you knew when he came in. Yeah. Because you could see everyone's reaction.
It just went quiet, didn't it?
Yeah. It went quiet. Yeah. And it was like the parting of the Red Sea as he walked in.
Yeah.
And then when you was training, in one of his sessions, if he walked anywhere near you, your effort level just quadrupled.
Through the roof.
You'd really pull all the stops out.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because, everybody, I think, who have had on the podcast so far, or even like that you talked to, that was around then, everybody says the same, and it just makes you think like, how, I personally, like, since Sensei Enoeda has passed away, I mean, I don't think I've ever been in that environment where it's gone like that, ever.
No, I don't think at the time we knew how lucky we were.
No.
You look back on it, and things like that you sort of treasure. Even in my license, Sensei Enoeda used to have a stamp.
Yeah.
We used to stamp your license. Well, this year he forgot his stamp, and he's actually borrowed his name in Japanese in mine, which is quite. I find that quite special. Bits like that. You sort of, now he's no longer here. You sort of, but yeah, you're right. His presence was, and if you were training and he was stood near, you didn't have to say anything to you. Your level just went up.
Yeah.
It was just a natural reaction.
It's they are like one in a million, aren't they? Them sort of inspirational characters, like that. So yes, you achieved your Nidan. You're still competing, But then obviously life and family commitments, and you step back from training in 2000.
Yeah. Well, my daughter was born, and obviously when you're competing, you have to be quite selfish. You're training a lot to reach whatever you want to reach, and obviously Georgina was born, so my sort of priorities changed.
Like they do, yeah.
But I didn't stop completely. I sort of dipped in and out.
Yeah.
I think I went back. Ross, my other son, he had a go at it, but he wasn't there long. He found it sort of boring.
Was that because like karate had changed a bit by then?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit when I'm on my second visit to it if you want. But yeah, he found it like just monotonous. But around that time, I think I did one last competition. It was the team. We got to the final, the Central Regions, and unfortunately, I got disqualified and sort of knocked somebody out, and that I thought, that's a good time to stop.
Yeah. Just because dipping in and out, control, probably lost a bit of that control.
Exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that. In that fight, I was getting frustrated because the referees. I thought I was scoring, and bear in mind there was no mitts on at this point. We were still bare knuckle. Yeah. And I thought I was scoring. The referees weren't giving it. And he came in at me. I stepped to the side and hit him with a Kazamazuki on the side of his jaw, and just literally he was on the floor. That was it. And that was purely because I'd not been training as regular.
Yeah. It's
possibly.
I think it's amazing that soon when you do start, if you like that family commitments, as we know, all can all speak to that.
Yeah,
Like it's your timing, the reactions, the control. It soon starts to.
Yeah, you don't think it does.
No,
it does.
No, but it does.
Well, it did that day. Well, I mean, I suppose it shows that it is effective when it wants to be.
Yeah, well, isn't it? No, but I think that's always like. I think that's the thing you're trying to explain to kids about, like, you know, control. I truly, like, a lot of the time I think they don't know what you're talking about. You know, but it's until you try and get that drummed into them. But it is that thing of, like you said, you know, you're using that control, but then, you know, as soon as that control's taken away, that actually, you know,
it works.
that's going to work.
Yeah. So I sort of drifted away from it really, and after then, I think that was around about 2007, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that was it then. I literally didn't put my gear on again.
So, I mean, obviously with life going on, did you sort of miss it, or did you feel like it was just a natural thing of like, oh yeah, a bit of time away? Did you ever or when you did step away, did you ever think that you would, you know, come back to it?
Early on, yeah, so I wouldn't say like I'd never ruled it out, but then as the time went on, you know, we moved from the area.
Yeah.
And then I never really give it a second thought. I'd never ever thought I'd go back to it.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, my life had changed. You know, I'd got like more children. My priorities were completely different. I had no pangs of going back to it. And also with moving away, like, you know, when you're in the area and you see people that you used to train with, you used to get, and you'll know what I'm going to say in a minute, you say, oh, when you're coming back training. So it never left your mind. But then once I moved, I never had that.
Yeah.
Nobody was there to
because
remind me.
I remember, like, obviously I'd come back to it, like 2000 and end of 2009, 2010, whatever it was. And again, you know, I remember seeing all you guys as a young lad, like doing karate, and never really competed too much, only like just in the club and stuff like at Grantham. So it was like seeing if I saw you about, like when I came back, it's like, oh, when you come back, because I see you competing all the time. Yeah, but I think, you know, by that point, like when I'd come back, I think the karate environment had changed so much anyway from like what it was. There's some good, some bad, you know. But you know, you obviously had that like long break, and I think like you probably could have easily fallen into that, not trap, but you've just, you know, it was that thing that you used to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's no different like having, you know, like having my dad on and stuff, that just from having a club and being full on all the time, and, you know, he was like self-employed. You know, you think, God, karate's not really paying the bills. There's got to be a concentration of energies like elsewhere. It's like with Dad finds golf and stuff like that. You know, like, so it starts taking more enjoyment from that. You can see how
you drift off.
And
you sort of eventually, you know, I did get to the point where I'd almost forgotten I did it.
Yeah.
To a point. You know, you get the odd reminder.
Yeah, like I said, it was
I didn't think about it. I never thought about, I'd like to go back to that once after
it's that thing I used to do.
Yeah. Once we've moved, I've got no interest in it at all, in that sense of coming back in a way.
Yeah. But I know we used to have a chat, like, you know, because before, I think it must have been before you moved away, sometimes I'd see you at the Grove, I think. You know, you'd be talking, oh, how is it, what's it going on? And you could see there's like a little spot of interest there. But yeah, so, you know, you got back into it in 2019. Yeah,
so obviously we had another son, Taylor, the youngest, and he obviously knew that I'd sort of trained years ago. He'd obviously seen bits of my mum's. I mean, my mum's stopping with her now, she's still got all memorabilia, all trophies, and she's still got them up in the room and stuff. So he'd seen them in photographs and stuff, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to try that." And at this point, I'd still got no interest in going back.
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, I'll try and find you a club." So obviously,
I think we'd spoke a couple of times, haven't we? Because you said, "Do you know any clubs like that?"
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And I found one, Ikuru, which is sort of near where I live, and I knew at the time they were with the KGB, and I knew there was a brown and black belt grading going on at the local sports centre. So what I did, because I'd got no info on the club, I went along, I asked somebody who the instructor was of that club, and I just watched him train. He didn't know it, and I thought, yeah, he's decent.
Yeah.
So after that event, I rang, I called him or messaged him and said, oh, my son would like to start. He said, yeah, bring him along. So I took Taylor along. He started enjoying it. It must have been like 4 or 5 sessions, 6 sessions, and I was sat there watching Taylor, and I thought, why am I sat here watching?
Yeah.
Why don't I have a go?
I totally relate to that, because like if I take the kids anywhere, like if we go to like the bike tracks or climb, walk on, I'm like, why am I sat here? This looks like good fun.
Yeah. And I think for me, and this comes into it as well, because I'd sort of asked the instructor, do you mind if I join in? And he said, have you done any training before? And I sort of said, yeah, I've done. I used to train a bit ago. He says, yeah, sure, come along, join in. But I think it was important as well, because I was, when I left, I was in pretty good nick. I was sort of, I won't say I found it easy. I found it easy because I trained hard.
Yeah.
I'd got to that point where I could do stuff. Now, we're going forward 12, 15 years or whatever it was. My body's changed. I'm slightly older. I'm not as bendy as I once was.
I don't believe it, mate.
So it was nice to go into a club where no one knew anything about me at all. There was no expectation.
It was probably like the best thing for you.
Yeah.
It's like coming back. If it was like coming back to Newark, and obviously like there's there'd be a few people there that would know you and stuff. There's probably like that little bit of like.
Oh, definitely, because in your head you're thinking these people might be looking at you thinking, oh, you used to be good. Where's that all gone wrong? No. But do you see what I mean? There was none of that. There was no preconception, so I could just dive into training, get on with it, and start. I mean, obviously you have to start off it's been interesting coming back. I have to look after my body a lot more.
I think it's a different mindset, isn't it? I mean, like I find it for me, even for myself now, and it's like when Phil comes back, or like if Dad's like comes back every once in a blue moon, it's you have to approach your training differently. Like you said, like your body's different. It isn't going to move like it used to. So you have to train like smarter, I guess.
I think as well though, times have changed. Like I've noticed a big difference from how training differs now to how it was back then. So you're more comfortable. So like when we're doing anything in the class, I have to be careful of, obviously I can do stuff, but I have to be careful of how many times I'm doing it. So if I think I've done enough repetitions of one particular kick, then I'll stop.
Yeah. Well,
no one bats an eyelid if you start stretching while everyone else is doing what they're doing. Whereas years ago, the sensei would have gone, probably, what are you doing? You carry on, hard and fast, keep going, keep going, keep going.
I mean,
that's
again,
gone now.
I mean, that again, I think in certain instances, the harder, faster, stronger still has a place here and there. But yeah, again, that thing of, it would be like, if you're injured, I'll train through it.
Yeah.
And I know we've brought it up before. It's like, no, that's not the best thing to do, is it now? Or like we said, like some of the stances, or the harder, faster, stronger all the time, and the front knees wobbling around all the place, because like people just like are trying to just do pure speed rather than the keeping the form right and trying to go as fast as they can, and that's again knee damage, hip damage, like what a lot of, I mean, you probably know, a lot of the people we know from like way back when have probably had new knees, new hips.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I think, but it's sort of the way training is, it lends yourself to look after your body a bit more. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there are times where I do get carried away. And I have to break myself in. I sort of, I might be training next to somebody that's younger than me, and we stood on one leg doing my washigeris, leaning against the wall, and you know, I'm trying to keep up with him, and I am keeping up with him, but the next day I know I shouldn't have done it. So now mentally I've got to try and rein myself in and say, do a few.
But that's the trick of trying to make that adjustment though, isn't it? Of like going...
It's just being more sensible and listening to my body a bit more. Yeah. I can still do these things, but it's almost like I've got them in a box and I'll bring them out when I actually need to.
Yeah.
Not just because I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's how I try and think of it. You know, just to keep me going.
Because I remember speaking to you all around back then when you was like looking for that, you know, when you said you'd found a club for Taylor, then you was like, oh, I'm getting the, you know, I'm going to get Rhyl and give it a go. And I was thinking, it's absolutely spot on. You know, and I bet that was like a breath of fresh air, sort of like finding the passion for it again.
You know what, I when I was training, I can remember thinking to myself, God, I've missed this. I really do. It really, everything sort of, and it's funny that, I know I was a bit older, you know, I'm not as bendy, I'm still quite flexible, as I've sort of started to build it back up since I came back training. But I thought, I've missed this, and it's different for me now. It's a different karate now.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a bit wiser. I'm understanding it a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about competing anymore. I'm trying to reach that perfection.
Yeah.
I know I'm never going to get there. The irony is, but I'm still going to try.
No, I can I totally relate to that. Yeah.
And I think, I look at it now. I mean, I help out with the club. Obviously, Sensei Bly Baker, he's a chief instructor. There's Chris Betts and Jess Baker. You know, we all sort of pitch in and help with the kids. And I quite enjoy the teaching side because I find teaching actually helps you learn about yourself.
Yeah,
you learn a lot about
absolutely.
yourself from teaching. Yeah. You sort of look at people and you see the mistakes and then you sort of think, do I actually do that? Because you do stuff subconsciously without knowing you do it. And you might be making mistakes. So I get a lot from that as well.
Well, I remember obviously like looking at that date of like 2019 and you just getting back into it. And I know you came like, I think you brought Taylor up a couple of times in it. And then obviously we had the whole COVID thing go off. And, I know you was really good enough. I think I was starting, I was doing a load of stuff on Zoom with Newark. You must have been doing stuff with you guys, was you? So then, I asked you, would you, teach for our lot as well? So there was a bit of that back, back.
But that was quite good because again, poor Taylor, he'd not been going long, and I think without that, there was a danger that he would have stopped.
Yeah.
Because I don't think up until that point he'd graded. When COVID hit.
No, I don't think actually. I'm sure. I remember you said it went nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
Like where, well, there's a lot of kids in that boat, wasn't there?
It was a weird time, wasn't it? But that kept him going, and I was quite happy to do it because we've got nothing else to do.
Yeah, and it was just like there, I was really thankful that you stepped in and did a few because I know I was like caning it and doing loads.
You was doing loads, wasn't you? Yeah.
Can you help me out, please? And I was really thankful for that we didn't just had like a different. It was you'd got a different perspective of someone else teaching and that.
And I think one of the good things to come out of that was like you could train with different instructors and you could just jump on a Zoom session and you're in a whole different world with different people.
Yeah, I think that like opened a lot of people's eyes. I think. So then, obviously, you were with your club, and then they then like left the KUGB.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can only go on. Obviously, I know. Obviously, our club was with the KUGB, and I don't know exactly. I can remember sitting in on a Southern KUGB Zoom meeting, AGM. And it was apparent during that meeting there was lots of there's a few clubs from down south. Some of the instructors that got the clubs, they were unhappy about various things that were going off within the KUGB. And as I see it, I mean, I'm not party to exactly what went off. I just know that we left the KUGB because they weren't happy, and there was a group of quite high-ranking people within the KUGB that decided to leave.
Yeah.
A few issues had been brewing, and then there was one that sort of broke the straw that broke the camel's back. and they said we can't be part of this, and so they formed their own association, Shotokan Connect, which our club sort of, Sensei Blythe Baker is one of the founding members, and Jess Baker as well.
And how's that going for Shotokan Connect's all going all right?
Yeah, all good. They're they're good people. They're pretty easy going. They sort of run it for the members.
Yeah.
That's it, really. They're not sort of.
I think
they're not in it for themselves.
No.
They just run it for the membership.
I think that is the best way. I mean, obviously we're not part of Newark now, but that when I was there, and obviously quite a driving force in that was my that was how I viewed it. It was like it's not, none of this is for you, like really for yourself. It's everything's trying to be for the members.
They put on courses, regular courses, brown and black belt courses, performance courses, bow staff courses. There's a lot going off that they put on for people.
It's about bringing bringing those opportunities, isn't there? And those training opportunities.
So, like, we've got there's a brown and black belt grading coming up, and brown and black belt course, and Q grades course, and in a couple of weeks. And what they tend to do is they will get an instructor from another association to come in. They're not averse to bringing people from the outside in for us. They've not got any problems with me going to train wherever I want.
Because you're gonna go there and think, if you like it, you might bring some of it back.
I think what they've done is seen all the bad things about some of the past associations and tried to sort of get rid of them.
Yeah.
They treat.
Well, this thing of like you can't train without I'll never agree to. I'd argue black and blue with someone about it. But as long as we can have you can have the discussion about it. But why wouldn't you want to train with other people?
I think that training with particularly if you do a little bit of teaching as well. I think that you as an because I obviously I train still. I do I help out with the teaching. I'm certainly I'll take the kids class, and from time to time I'll take the adults. But I think it's important, as if you're doing teaching, to go somewhere else outside of your own club environment if you can, and train with different people.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to get in that rut of you're in a comfort zone. And I think there's nothing like going to somebody else's dojo with a high-ranking instructor and feeling like a white belt again.
Absolutely.
You're learning stuff.
You've got to keep.
You're in a different environment. You don't know anyone. You feel a bit out of place.
You have to keep. Definitely. You definitely have to keep a beginner's mindset, especially like as you do grade or you've been doing karate for so long. You've got to try and keep that beginner's.
And you learn stuff as well. I mean, I sort of, when I train with different instructors that I've never trained with before, I've got a little book, and then later that night I'll write down what we did in a little book to keep it in. And then there's a lot. We did one with Sensei Scott Langley, and we was doing some stuff, and some stuff I could do in that course, but there was some stuff I found really difficult. So I wrote it all down in my book, and I'll keep practicing it until I get it. Because it's not, you can't always, it's pointless going on these courses and then forgetting it. I'll take it away, and then what I'll do is I'll write it down in a book, I'll keep practicing it, and then when I think I'm never going to get it to his level, I'm not saying I can, but when the penny starts to drop, I can then pass it on to people who I'm teaching. So everyone benefits.
It was like, you trained with Sensei Scott before?
No, that was the first time.
So it's like, again, seeing some of the instructors that I know, because you've been a big supporter of us, anytime I've put a course on, you've always been supporting us, which I want to thank you for that. But it's like seeing, just for example, like Scott come and seeing how he does his karate and how he moves, you're like, that to me, I'd never seen anything like that before. But it'd be like when Sensei Matt Price come and you see like how he's moving across the floor and stuff like that. You're like, I've never seen that before. I mean, even like, I can remember when you had Sensei Richard Amos come to teach, and the way, you learn stuff, not just about karate as well. I mean,
the way that he delivers stuff, the way
Yes,
that these
yeah,
guys,
the way he's
the way
teaching
that they teach stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just about, you know, because the amount of stuff that these guys know about body mechanics, you know,
Yes.
they've forgotten more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
But the way that they deliver it, so as an instructor, I can not only take the content, but the way that they're delivering that to them, the students, so that they can hopefully understand it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Sensei Scott said on the podcast. He says like everybody's stealing bits from other people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you know, and you know, you can take it back, and then, you know, because you know when you're teaching, I'm quite. I know people learn in different ways, you know. So now I try and show them. I try and show them through repetition, but I also try not to talk too much. But I think it's important that you talk to people and talk them through what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
And that's what all these guys do. All these because they are professional instructors. You know, I'm a hobbyist.
Yeah.
You know, I do it, you know, because I like doing it, you know, but these guys are a different level.
Oh, absolutely.
Why shouldn't you train with those guys?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
Exactly.
You know, why would you join LA Fitness and then go and join the local gym, and then LA Fitness will say to you, you can't go to that gym because you're a member of our gym.
LA Fitness, that's a free.
Hang on a minute, I'm the paying customer. I should do what I want. Treat people like adults, and I think and you know, Connect, I like that. They treat us like adults. You know, I can, you know, I'm just a paying member. You know, but I can have some input if I wish. You know, and put suggestions forward.
But obviously, like once you join them, you know, I remember talking again. Do you think you'll grade again, or you're just happy the way you are and where you were, and you know, you did go and grade for your third dan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was. It'd been a while since my last grading, and it sort of I think when you sort of it sort of gets suggested to you in a way, doesn't it? It's sort of muted to you. Do you think you ought to grade? And you sort of think, oh, do I have to? But yeah, so I took a year run up really. I knew it was coming in December, so I really ramped it up gently. It's a gentle curve. I'm conscious of my body, but even if it's light training, I sort of started in January and then culminating in the December of 23. Was it? No, 21.
21.
21.
21.
Yeah. So yeah, I passed my third dan.
Yeah.
And it went quite well. I obviously it's still quite fresh in my memory, but I was quite happy with it.
And then obviously, you know, you've done that plenty of time before. If you've got you think of going again or like whatever, but I know you fulfilled like a dream of like going to train in Japan.
Yes, yeah. So since coming back, it's sort of you know, I do look at karate slightly different. My goals are different. As I say, it's a bit deeper for me now. There's many layers to it that I'm still trying to get into and pull. And I thought, oh, you know, I'd love to go and train in Japan. But I've sort of got to quantify. I have trained in Japan, but there's others that have. I was how can I put it? Almost a karate tourist.
Yeah.
So I can't claim to have been out there for any long period. And
but
obviously I went with my wife Sally, so I didn't want to turn it into a karate fest. So it was a bit of we'll go to Japan, we'll do the tourist bit, and while I'm there, I will train at the JKA headquarters, which I obviously did.
Yeah. Wow. Enjoyed it? It was all good?
Yeah, it's funny because Japan, you know, when you first go there, it's like being dropped on Mars. You've got I quite like it because you've got really not much of a, you know, I don't really know the language. I know a few, you know, phrases. Obviously know a few phrases from karate, but that's not going to get you by in general conversation, is it? No. But it's quite, it's chaos. And we went to the dojo. They were lovely. They were very welcoming. And it's funny because once the class started, I felt at home. Yeah. No. It was no different really, and I was fortunate that I trained with Naka Sensei.
Oh, brilliant!
Which I'd struck lucky there.
I think I mean, obviously he's been over in the UK just recently, but I was fortunate enough to train with him a couple of times, and
and again,
anyone if they get the chance to train with him, he's brilliant.
Again, he's very enthusiastic. He wants you to enjoy your karate. You know, he teaches with a smile on his face. He goes into, it was quite a, so the class was, it was a mixed class to begin with, and then the lower grades got separated off. So there was all high grades in there. A range of ages, like Japanese there, sort of, it was in the day class, so there were, you know, people in their 60s and 70s, and they were very agile.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed that. But yeah, so it's quite a, some of it was quite a deep class, quite sort of advanced, but it's really enjoyable.
But
Really loved it.
I remember when you came to train with us with Sensei Matt Price, and like I think in the evening when we went out, there's me, you, Sean, I think, and Matt, and Matt, I think he was like, I can tell you later things that you're like, so you won't drop yourself in it, you know, like when you're over there and stuff.
Yeah, but I think that, I mean, the Japanese people are very, I mean, it's a bit unnerving at first because they're so friendly and they just want to help you and they don't expect anything in return. They were like that at the dojo, they were like that in general, you know. I mean, I could give you loads of stories, but when I was, I'd been on their sort of underground network and I'd just come up and I was actually going to train at the JKA, so I'd got my phone out. I wasn't lost because I got Google Maps, but an elderly gentleman came up to me and said, "Can I help you?" in sort of pidgin English. He must have been in his 70s. And I think it was about a 15-minute walk. He said, I'll take you. And he took me all the way to the door.
Oh.
Didn't expect any. But that's how they are. It was like that in the dojo. I went in, paid my money. It was all very welcoming. Sally was with me. We weren't really sure where she could go, and they welcomed her into the dojo, gave her a seat, sat her down. Yeah, amazing experience. Just like, it's surreal to be there though. And at the end, the senseis all disappeared, and sort of we all lined up to the side, and I thought, I don't know what's going off now, and then all of a sudden the lower grades got like, they're like hand mops.
Oh,
got on all fours,
to clean the floor.
All fours, cleaning it, and then they'd come up to you with a mop, presenting the mop to you like, that's your go, so I've got to clean the floor. As daft as it sounds, I really enjoyed all that.
That's so true. You see, I've seen it quite a bit just recently on the, like on social media. I know the Machidas in Brazil, like
and the floor is like glass. It is like glass. It's perfect, just like you'd imagine. I'll definitely go back. But do a bit more of a, I don't know, a bit more of a karate tour than sightseeing.
And I know we've spoke in the past, like loosely saying, with a bit of the future for you. You said that your instructors were maybe like edging you towards doing like the like maybe an examiner thing.
Yeah, I've been sort of so I'm on that road of becoming a Q grade examiner. Just sort of doing the bits that was required for that, really sitting in on it and doing them. But that, again, it's just enough. I didn't sort of do it in the fact that I expect that I'm going to do loads of Q grade exams. I haven't gone into it for that. It's more of a
knowledge thing.
Yeah. So it's all about understanding, a better understanding of what they're actually looking for specifically at the different grades. So that then I can become more useful to the students. It's just about more knowledge for me. That's all it is.
But if you could say, like in a nutshell, what does karate mean to you?
Now, peace in a world of chaos. It for me now it is completely different to my first visitation in the 90s.
So if you say if it's peace now, what was it then? Chaos.
I was all about wanting to compete and wanting to do my best, yes, but now it's a bit more, I understand it more, and it gives me, so even when you're in the dojo and you're doing Kumite, when I've finished, it just does my head, takes me away from all the pressures of daily life. So it just gives me peace in that.
An escape.
I think if anyone's like, you're very fortunate if you've got that thing in life is your escape, or it is your de-stress.
Yeah. It just, if you've had a bad day at work and you don't feel like going training, you go and, I might be teaching the kids and they might, I might be teaching something and they get it. The penny drops and I'm like, yes, I've forgotten everything outside. Yeah. Whereas before, when I was training in the 90s, I didn't have children.
No. Mm-hmm. No, it's a totally different take.
I'm at a different stage in my life, and it's like now I understand karate better. It's like, it's a bit deeper for me now. Yeah. A lot deeper than it ever was, in the fact that I see that I am reaching for perfection. I know I'm never going to get there, but I think it was like, this is going to get a bit deep, a bit weird, but it's like, I think it was Bruce Lee said, it's like a sculptor having a block of wood and slowly knocking the rough edges off this block of wood, and he's revealing something inside. That's what martial arts is to me. Yeah. Every now and again, I'll go, and you all know it. We'll go to sessions and you'll go for some. I never have a bad session. Don't get me wrong. I'm always pleased I've gone. But some sessions they might be mediocre, and I think I could have done that better. Could have done this better. Could have done that better. And every now and again, I get this little nugget, like a carrot dangling in front of me. I got that right today. Yeah. And I've revealed something else about myself, or I've got this technique right, whatever it is. Even my teaching ability, I've nailed that today because they've understood that. Yeah. Yeah. So I get so much from it, and it just takes me away from the rigours of, that we all have pressures in life. That's what it means to me now. In the 90s, it didn't mean none of that. Yeah. Different.
But what does the future hold for you? Obviously, you said make the Q grade examiner thing, but just keep.
I just keep plugging away. Yeah, for me now, it's all about just keep moving. I'm determined not to just give up and stop moving. Yeah. I've got to do. I think now, I'm at the age where, I'm 55, so any movement and exercise is good. Yeah. And this is what I do best. So I'm just going to keep going. It's just trying to stay young. Trying to keep doing a bit, try and work around any niggles or injuries. Don't stop training, try and work around them. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah. And then maybe there might be another grading.
Oh, good lad. Yes.
Maybe not, we don't know. We'll see.
Keep us posted.
We'll see.
We'll come down and support you.
In your corner.
Yeah. But I'm going to hand you over to Andy, who's got
just the pressure on.
The questions.
The time starts. So, go straight in. What's your favourite kata?
That's a really difficult one because it changes.
Yeah.
I always had a kata that was my go-to kata in times of sheer panic when I'd forgotten everything else, and it was Nija Shio. Okay. That'll always be my go-to one if I've. Whatever, that's it. I'll say that one.
Okay, cool. Favourite kata for bunkai?
Dear, I'd say Nijishio as well.
Fair enough.
Because I know it sort of.
Yeah. Favourite Kumite technique?
I think I've got several really. My favourite one, because it was the most devastating if you got it right, was a Shiragiri. Yeah. It's a very powerful technique, and if you got that in the ribs, you weren't getting up.
No. Best male competitor, past, present.
That I've seen, or
that you've
seen
against.
Have we seen four?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Ronnie Christopher.
Yeah.
I watched him. I wanted to be like him, and I've been in there with him. I know I'll never get anywhere near him.
I like it.
Fair enough. Best female competitor, same rules apply.
I would say Julie Nicholson.
Oh,
purely for me watching her in the 90s.
Brilliant.
She was a kata and kumite. She used to do both. She was only quite petite, but again, she was she put it on them.
Yeah. 5-person kumite team. You can include yourself again, past, present.
I'm nowhere near good enough to Can it be people that I've seen or
yeah. It could be seen, fought with. It's up to you. It could be, like I say, it could be past club members, whatever you like.
Your dream team.
It's really difficult. And I've got to have seen them live.
No. You don't have to have seen them live. You could have seen them on YouTube. It's
so
fine.
I'm going to go. I will go. Ronnie Christopher at number 1.
Yeah.
I would say Kagawa.
Ooh.
Elwyn Hall.
No.
Yeah.
2 left.
Ooh.
I would say. I've forgotten his name. The guy that knocked Don Sharp out.
Oh, Richard Esselton?
No.
Oh, Cockburn.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cockburn,
I'd put him in there.
He was a real man.
Yeah, he was. I liked him.
One more then.
One more. That's so difficult. I'm going to say, only because I've watched him and I trained with him and I wanted to be like him, but again, never got there. I'd say Phil Rakes. I'm going to put him in there. I think he deserves a shot of going amongst that.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Line of that. 3-person kata team. Same rules apply.
I'd say 3-person. So can it be mixed?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I would say it's a difficult one. That Sean Roberts, Julie Nicholson, Sensei Yuhara. Mix it up a bit.
Brilliant.
Mix it up a bit.
That's brilliant. That's a good line of that. So, what is your favourite karate moment? If you could pin that down.
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
The one that sticks out.
There's been many.
One of the many then.
Yeah.
One of the many that it's repeated in my head, which is I guess it's quite a personal one really, but and it was a fairly innocuous one to many. It comes from the Nationals at the KGB Nationals years ago at the indoor arena. My mum and dad came to watch me, and my dad was a quiet guy. Never know he was there, and I can remember lining up for fighting. You know how you line up and you see who you're going to fight. I got lined up against this monster. He was massive. He was about 6'4", and I thought, my dad's come to watch me. My mum and dad had come to watch me, and I'm going to get absolutely battered here. And it was a really rough fight.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the fact that I'd won. But you'll know when you're fighting, you get in the zone and you can't really hear a lot of what's going on around you.
You can't, no.
And bear in mind, my mum and dad was in the stand, and my dad's quiet, and I could hear him.
Wow.
And I thought, I was trying to fight. My dad was cheering me on.
Yeah.
And anyway, the fight finished, and I'd won. And I was under a lot of pressure. He was a big guy. It was a rough fight, but I was pleased that I'd won. But it was more that I looked up in the stands, and my dad just stood up and went,
Oh, brilliant. That's a great moment. So which instructor has had the most lasting effect on you?
Is that going to be one?
It's got... yeah, it's got to be one.
Dear.
Well, because it's you can have two.
I'm gonna say 2 then, because it'll be unfair. I'm gonna say Sensei Darren Taggart, because he got me on the road.
Yeah.
He influenced me massively. But since then, obviously I've trained with many instructors, different instructors, and the one that I was really engaged with and I found really fascinating, I've only trained with him once, was Sensei Richard Amos.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well.
That was a really good course, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd recommend anyone watching this,
Yeah.
if you haven't read his book, read it.
Yeah. We need to get Richard Amos Sensei back down here.
Yeah.
Definitely. And final question, your greatest karate achievement?
Greatest karate achievement?
Yeah.
Coming back to training after such a long layoff.
Fair enough.
Getting through the dojo door, mate.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's when you think about it, it's an achievement, isn't it?
That's got to be it, because I never thought it was going to happen.
Fair enough.
Sensei Dave, thank you ever so much
This
for
has
coming
been
in to
brilliant.
see us. It's been
Thank
really
you.
good to
No,
have you on.
thank you.
Long overdue though.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Yeah. Yeah, say no more. No, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
All the
Thank you
best,
very
mate.
much.
Thank you ever so much. Cheers.
Let me talk to you.